You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the Barbell Logic podcast. Welcome to Beast Over Burden. I'm your host, Nikki Sims. I'm the CXO and a strength and nutrition coach at Barbell Logic. With me is Andrew Jackson. Hey, Andrew.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. He is the COO, also a strength and nutrition coach at Barbell Logic.
And mildly sunburned today.
Yeah, Andrew has this really great, it's like you know how snoring is like sleep bragging? Well, he has this special sunburn that's like ski bragging because he went skiing when it was sunny, and now he has a really great goggle sunburn.
Yeah, it was an amazing St. Patrick's Day on the mountain. We up here in Washington got a ton of powder, a freakish February, into February, beginning of March, after what I thought was going to be one of the worst seasons ever. Was saved at the last minute by like 2 straight weeks of dumping. And then it went from high 20s, low 30s, like well below freezing for 2 weeks on the mountain, up to almost 60 degrees in 2 days.
Wow.
So it was this perfect bluebird sky, slushy, but still good base of snow on the mountain. That also, you know, it's sort of like hanging out by the ocean. You get that, not only the sun, but then you get the reflection off the snow. And I had sunscreen on, you know, SPF 30, put it on a couple times, but still got the rosy cheeks. But it was a fun day. On the way up the mountain with Clara, we had a great conversation about normal distributions.
Excellent car talk.
It was in the context of her asking me whether women were stronger than men. And so I got to talk about normal distributions and, you know, what two populations with different means look like, and that there can be overlap. So you can't just answer that question with all or nothing.
Right.
And then we went to dinner, but I forgot that it was St. Patty's Day. And the restaurant we went to just happened to be like the biggest St. Patty's Day celebration place I've ever seen.
Wow.
So there was like live dancing and music and flags and beer all over the place. It was pretty awesome.
Did you guys wear green?
Not really. Like I said, we forgot.
Yeah, so. I forgot too. I was reminded twice yesterday.
But it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then today, powered by corned beef hash, I believe.
Oh my God. It's one of my favorite meals.
Salty meats and potatoes and salty cabbage.
I like that corned beef hash from the can with like the diced potatoes. It's like 1,000 calories per bite. So good.
It's a fine line to me between looking like cat food and looking like people food.
I don't care.
Stuff we had was pretty legit. And I had a pretty good bloat today. I was up about maybe 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds from what I've been. Went into the gym and was feeling pretty good during warm-ups. I was just like, I don't know. I think I kind of got a little gas in the tank today. And I was supposed to hit 3x5 at about 300 pounds. And I decided to do 5x5 at 330 pounds.
This is on the squat?
On bench.
On bench. Oh
so
my God.
I just hit a 3x5, 4x5, and 5x5 lifetime PR.
Wow.
Powered by St. Patty's Day corned beef hash.
Sounds like some pretty good nutrition guidance. That is actually really, wow. So you went up 30 pounds and did 2 more sets of 5. That's bananas.
I did my warm up at like 300. I was like, well, that moved pretty dang well. I did my last warm up set at 140, which is 308 roughly. So I was like, what if I put 10 kilos on? 25 pounds roughly. Did a set of 5 and it was heavy but doable. And I actually took 10 kilos off, put it back on the stack, and I was just going to finish with 2 more sets of 140, like a top set of 5 and a back off. And then I was like, well, if I just do another set of 5 at 150.
I love this. Just peer pressuring yourself.
Felt pretty good. So I went back to the weight tree, got 5 kilo plates, put those back on, did a second set of 150, and Had to work pretty hard for the 5th rep, but I thought, I think if I walk around and shake my arms and like put on a good song.
That's what works. Yeah, for sure.
The first 2 sets I was listening to a podcast.
Oh, geez.
Like getting distracted mid-set by something that somebody would say.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, well, I bet if I turn it up a little bit, like actually get into the mindset that I definitely could squeeze out a third
bench
set.
Press isn't even warmed up until the second set of whatever your work sets are.
Exactly. That was how I convinced myself to do the second set. Was like that first set of 5. I was like, I don't think I could do another one, but maybe I'm just not warmed up yet. Pressured myself into the second one, and that went pretty well. So I was like, put the real music on for the third one. That was even a 3x5 PR lifetime.
What did you listen to?
First one was Queens of the Stone Age. I almost listened to Creed, Take Me Higher, for the second PR, the 4x5.
Oh, dear.
I mean, that song actually was my era of, like, I can remember listening to Creed, rowing.
I actually wish I didn't know this.
in college. But I kind of also went with the crowd when it fell out of favor, but now it's kind of like coming back. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Creed is making a revival.
No. Like, I don't want the low-waisted jeans and I don't want Creed. I just want to be asleep for all of that. Come back when high-waisted jeans are back.
Creed started coming back, ironically, like a year ago. And now I think it's like back and people are like waving the Creed flag now.
Even just you saying the name of the song, it is now in my head. It is already in my head on repeat, and it's 30 seconds and I'm already annoyed.
The first time I saw it coming back, ironically, was this video that went viral of a guy watching a video. It was a React video of a guy pulling a bucket of frozen water. He pulled it out. And it was this guy reacting to it. And he was like, yes, he's going to do it. And then it went slow-mo and he just like chucked the ice block up into the sky. It's just dudes being dudes kind of thing. Like dudes love seeing stuff explode. And actually, shout out to Monica Rosenberg. She just posted the same thing like 2 days ago. And I've got to send her this video because anyways, the guy's reacting to it. And as the ice block goes chucking up in the air, he starts singing Creed Higher as it goes slow-mo up into the air and then breaks. But anyways, I listened to that between the third and fourth set. And then I think I put on, it was the last 2 songs, I think were both 9 Inch Nails, Everything You Imagined, which is kind of my go-to next level song in the gym. Did the 4th set, hit the 5th set, snagged a PR, probably even had another little bit in the tank. So I felt pretty good about my day. And I am feeling a massive pump at the moment. Like
awesome.
Then I finished with incline dumbbell and dips.
Oh, yeah, that's great. It's a great workout.
Before I go on to what I actually wanted to talk about today, I think you also hit some training milestones recently. Like, tell me about your vacation and then immediately jumping back into post-vacation deadlift.
Yeah, I had a great deadlift workout on Saturday, good belt squat workout. I think it's because we were able to train, kind of air quotes, but we actually trained pretty much to what was written, except I didn't squat.
Yep.
Which I didn't miss at all. But yeah, got right back into deadlifts on Saturday, heavy belt squats, had a great upper body workout on Thursday and then again today. So yeah, definitely feels like I didn't miss a beat. Also, what I'm more shocked about after like really stuffing my face at our all-inclusive, like I've totally leaned out already and it's been like just a number of days. Like I think I snapped back so much faster than I thought I was going to.
Yep.
So pretty stoked about that. Like I thought it was going to take me like 2 weeks.
Do you think it's because you maintained the training?
I think it's because I was controlling my calories and eating so well and not drinking for like 8 or 9 weeks going into it. And then I, went off or whatever for like 6, 7, 8 days, something like that. So, and then still had high protein. We were super active. Well, no, we did a lot of laying around in different places, but we worked out.
Yeah.
But I think it's because, like it wasn't a, just more of what I had been doing with a week off. Like it was like 9 weeks of
right
control and then like a week off. And yeah, I like deflated so fast. I was so surprised.
I think that is a testament to consistency.
Yeah, it's
the inverse of training.
Because I was being consistent with not that. Yeah.
Or it's the parallel of training. Like if you are consistent for really, really long periods of time and then take a small break for like a week, it doesn't take that much. I mean, my bench PR just happened after taking 8 days, quote unquote, off,
right.
But I kept training through it, even though it was probably 80, 90%, at least on the intensity days of what I was planning to do. So I don't know. I think that's pretty rad.
Yeah, I'm really stoked about it.
Now, surprised me though, because I thought coming off of that, you were going to take like a 3 to 6 month break from tracking. Last we chatted, I think you were jumping back into tracking.
I think I was tossing around that idea, but no, I got right back into it because I feel so good. Like, I don't think it was enough of a restriction that it felt like I was really taking a lot out of my life. I don't think I'll do it all the time. Like, if we're going to go out to eat, I don't think I'll worry about it, but it won't be as strict. I definitely think it's helpful for getting enough protein because that's the one macro that if I'm not measuring, that's one that I'll kind of slip on. I mean, I will definitely get enough ice cream. That's not an issue. I need to make sure I get enough protein. But I'm going back to the same numbers I was hitting before.
Well, ice cream is the fourth macro, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my most important macro is ice cream. I found a new flavor that I texted you and Clara about. It's a new Tillamook flavor. It's a German chocolate cake, and I had it last night. And in fact, I did 2 different grocery delivery orders trying to get this ice cream, and it was finally successful.
This is better than the Tillamook mudslide?
I don't know if I would compare. I like to have both of them in my life,
okay.
But it was a special one.
Gotcha. That's amazing.
But yeah, just all that to say, like, it was totally worth, all that eating behavior leading up to it. And then totally worth giving myself a total break.
Yeah.
It took me I think 3 or 4 days to actually relax into the vacation mindset in every way.
Right.
And then after I did, it was just like, cool, I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. I'm not going to feel weighted down by anything. Like, I'm going to enjoy this. And I did. And now I'm back to enjoying it again. So
nice. Yeah, I felt pretty quick on the snapback. I feel like I may still have a little bit, but actually I weighed in Sunday morning at 244, which was pretty much where I left. I popped up probably 4 or 5 pounds, but so much of that is water weight.
Yeah.
Even just sitting on a plane, I'll put on 3 or 4 pounds. So there's just a lot of variables. But yeah, seemed to snap back. And the fact that I came back and hit the PR today, I thought was pretty cool. And what I actually wanted to, for the subject of the podcast, is we're 15 minutes in. Somewhat related to what we're talking about right now in terms of mindset. But Mac McGregor and I were talking this morning on a call about the importance of setting expectations, particularly the relationship between the coach and the client. And as the training advancement progresses, we've talked probably on this podcast a million times about the training advancement curve and how initially it's a linear line for most people. And then it's sort of upward, up and to the right. And then it kind of flattens out, still up and to the right, but the slope is smaller, more shallow as you get into sort of intermediate. And then you kind of flatten out, very almost horizontal towards the end. And that's not to say that progress just tracks that line, but your potential and your capacity to advance kind of behaves that way. And that it came up in the context really of training kind of not feeling great lately for both of us, at least most of the time, getting into our mid to late 40s. You go into the gym and it's not like it was when we were in our 20s, where you kind of have this gas pedal you can push on.
Yeah.
Where Mac's words, he said, you show up and you feel like you're performing. You're attacking the weight and it's got this just different feel to it.
That's why accessories are fun.
That's true. That's true. There's certain movements where you can kind of go after it a little bit, especially the heavier movements lately. And I don't know if it's so much an age thing or an advancement. I think it's a little bit of both, but we're certainly pretty advanced, both of us, in our training. And it becomes very important that you manage your mindset and your expectations for what a training session is to be like when you're at that stage. Because if you go in expecting to add 5 pounds every time, or expecting it to feel like you did when you were 25, you're going to be constantly reinforcing this idea that training sucks.
Yeah.
Or that you're failing, probably even worse than that. And so like the specific instance he was talking about is that he's warming up his deadlift and he had a certain number that was programmed for the day. And this happened to be on Friday. You just get that feeling like, there is no way in hell I'm hitting that number. So then do you just scrap it? Like if your last warm up, it's 50 pounds to go and you're barely getting a warm up set in? Or do you pick the weight that you can do for the day and call it good and still feel like you're doing a productive session? Because your expectation for the day is to show up and do work, not just to add 5 pounds.
That makes me think of the whole theory or the difference between scarcity and abundance. Like if you think you need to figure it out or just leave for the day, you have this idea that this was my only opportunity to do this and I'll never get it again.
Right.
Because that's what my identity is right now. More.
Right.
But the longer you train, you're like, I'm going to be training forever. How do I keep training forever?
Yeah. Well, and training is the key word. We talk about the difference between exercise and training all the time. In the context of starting out, you want to have a program, because if you're not training towards a goal, if your session isn't part of moving towards a goal, then it's just exercise. You're just trying to get hot and sweaty. Well, I think I've talked about this before, that if you get so wrapped around the axle about the session today, now you're back to just exercising. You're not training anymore. You're doing something for the day and losing sight of that bigger picture.
And I got to say, that's different. If you have a plan and you execute that plan, you're still training, even if it doesn't include a PR. But if you are constantly bouncing around without a plan and there's no kind of focus, that's more exercisey.
Yeah, and I think that's where we start getting to where we're getting to more details about how a coach goes about managing expectations or managing the plan. Might be a way to synchronize language here. That really what I'm talking about is that as a lifter progresses, the coach is there to help give the plan enough context, structure, direction, and options for a lifter who, by that point in their training, has a better sense of what hard really feels like, what pain versus discomfort feels like, and might be able to make some more calls on their own, where you as a coach want to make sure that you're setting expectations about what the purpose of the session is, how that fits in the broader plan and moves them towards their long-term goals, and gives them some outs or options so that you don't feel like it's this binary fail or success based on whether you hit the exact number of reps with a certain weight on the bar.
I had dinner with a friend of mine the other night who I've known her since I had a CrossFit gym, and she and I lived in the same city for a while when I was coaching just the barbell years ago when I was coaching another model. And we were talking about what I've learned since then, and it's different. My coaching is so much different now.
15 years.
Almost like 10 years or so, since then, since I lived in San Francisco.
Wow.
And we were burning ourselves out with training so much that she stopped training. And that was hard to see. And looking back, it's because I was like grinding people through Texas Method.
Yep.
And I was just forcing people into these programs and doing whatever I could to get just more on the bar. And that's so different now. And we talked about how we would really feel like a failure when we would train so hard. Like we would train 4 days a week. We would condition twice a week. We would spend hours working on it, tons of volume. And then we would try to get a PR and we would miss. And it was not fun. Like we were failing.
Must be doing something wrong.
Right. Must be doing something wrong. And we were just connected about how like we really enjoy training. We love doing those movements. We love feeling powerful, and we can still do that without that concept of like needs to be more to be true. it's so different now because, we were both advanced and that's just not what we needed to do.
Right. And so here's the first principle concept that I think is what's really driving, physiologically, what's driving the problem is that there is only so much muscle mass that you are going to be able to put on in your life, sadly.
Yeah, it is really sad. I think about that often, actually.
Your body can only add so much. I've seen some numbers thrown around, which I hesitate to quote because I haven't really dug into the validity of them. But even on anabolic steroids, if somebody was taking that, there's only so much. And not everybody even responds that well to them. Like you're either a genetic freak or you're, normal, or you're somewhere on the normal distribution, back to that idea. But regardless, the reason that line plateaus is because eventually you're not putting on any more muscle that you can learn how to lift more weight. So you're also not going to be able to add weight after a certain point.
And so if you think that you're supposed to add weight, then you have that disconnect that you were talking about,
right,
where you have this expectation, but the reality can't be the same.
Right. Now, we know, though, that even if we hit the limit of our genetic potential in terms of ability to add muscle or add weight to the bar, that we still want to keep training. And some people refer to this as taking the medicine phase, but I think it should be referred to as taking the fun phase, because let's make training fun again, right? It was fun in the beginning, but it was artificially fun because we thought it was fun to add weight on the bar.
Right.
And that made indirectly going to the gym and hanging out with your friends and posting on social media, that made training fun. You get this kind of happy, warm, fuzzy. But training can still be fun if you work with yourself and your coach on figuring out like how to set expectations and how to draw from your own experience and your coach's experience to build a program that you look forward to. And that both challenges you to continue to grow as much as you can, hold on to as much as you can, but then feel good and get on with your life without having this big melodramatic psychological emotional drama every time you go into the freaking gym.
And that can really, you can take it to another level when you add like nutrition and body composition changes around it.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can go through blocks. You're like, I'm going to do a 12-week kind of stint right now of working on some nutrition changes. And that's going to influence your training. And then you might do a different approach the next 12 weeks. So you can still break it up and have like a focus where change is the goal. It's not just like being the same, which is fine. I kind of love doing that. Sometimes we're just like, I'm having a great time building muscle. I love eating. I don't really want to think about it. Like, I'm just going to keep doing this.
Totally.
Sometimes we just want to have a focus because that's fun also. And you can totally do that without having to go full bore into something. It's like body composition changes are a fun way to do it.
Well, this is another one that I find interesting is that there's a tendency to want to compete in something to set that target. Like, oh, I want to go do a show. I want to become a bikini competitor or I actually want to be a bodybuilder. But that's another one of those things that like, let's set some goals that give you something to aim at without it needing you to go into the dark side of strength and conditioning or training or competing, that undermine your near-term health and your long-term enjoyment of the process of training. And that's, I guess, try not to make this a sales pitch thing, but it's like, that's where I think sometimes there's a lack of appreciation, even by the coach, predominantly by the client, that if the weight on the bar is not going up and to the right in the near term, obviously we want the weight, generally speaking, depending on your goals or body composition changes, but generally you're trying to make the weight on the bar go up. But that isn't the measure of whether a coach is worth having or not. Like, I think the coach brings value to each of those stages in different ways. I don't want people to come back and say, oh, Andrew said, weight on the bar doesn't matter. It shouldn't go up. Yes, we want to keep working on progress. But I'm saying just because you might not have a add 5 pounds every session kind of a block of training, the coach is still providing a ton of value. Like when I was talking to Mac, what he's bringing to his clients' feedback and their programming day by day is over 30 years of life and training and work and, coaching experience all into that one session. and the ability to provide that perspective, the ability to step back, the way he described it. I think you've talked about something like this before too, where it's you can see in the client where they're going or what they can be.
Yeah. The coach has that vision in their heads.
Right.
Yeah.
And the client's got their own way of kind of framing it, but they might not see how far they could go or what they're capable of. And that's where I think the coach and the client relationship can become really powerful and enable the client to see themselves as more than they are, to get them going down that journey, staying consistent and continuing to show up. And that the coach can bring in different tools or options as they're moving towards that. But I'm curious, when you're working with your clients, how do you bring that perspective, or how do you get aligned on their perspective as they advance through their training?
Well, I recently took on a couple of newer clients. This is some months ago now. And for them, like, they're in a phase where more is doable. And I would like to take advantage of that phase. So with them, I'm like, we're going to push a little bit. And sometimes they push a little faster than I want them to. And sometimes they are a little resistant. They want to repeat weights. And I'm just kind of like, no, now's the time. Like, we got to do this now, but we have to like kind of make sure we have runway. So with that stage, it's kind of like giving the right amount of more and making sure we can kind of keep it going without going too hard, and make sure we still keep pushing along because we have the opportunity.
What was the conversation that you had that you were able to recognize this is a more phase?
I just knew that they were new to lifting.
Okay. Gotcha. So it was just their newness, their kind of initial capacity. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then with my more advanced lifters, that has so much more to do with how they are recovering. I start talking a lot more about that. And I have had to be really aware of my kind of innate drive for more. And I have to keep an eye on myself for that, because I have pushed people too hard, and I've definitely learned over the last few years about that. But I will be like, let me squeeze a little bit more out, or that won't be the right thing to do if I'm not paying attention to their recovery.
What does that look like when you look back at times where you felt like you pushed too hard? What did that look like?
Missing reps all the time, like
Gotcha.
every session, every week, and just being like, well, let's try it again. Let's try it again. Just like literally running into a wall.
Yeah.
Or getting tweaks. And like, I was teaching them that was the way to train.
Oh, interesting.
So like, that's not good. I don't like to do that anymore. So now I'm way more aware of like that transition of, all right, things are going to start to be different now. Like, we get to really space out how weight jumps occur. You have a lot of different rep schemes that we're going to work through. And it really goes from like pretty basic programming looks to like pretty varied programming looks if you just look at it on paper. And it's different for all of my clients.
Yep.
But it's like 5s, 3s, 8s, new accessories, cycling. Like, they'll lift the same weight a million times.
Yep.
How many times have you benched 275? 100 million times.
Yeah.
And like, you just start working. And that's one thing that I say to them is like, this used to be a big deal weight, and now it's something that you're going to lift all the time. And sometimes it's going to feel way too heavy, and sometimes it's going to feel rocket fast. That's what it is now.
When you get to that type of programming where you're repeating weights, again, you're out of the phase where you expect to see it going up on some predictable rate of increase. You're varying sets and reps. What is it that you're trying to accomplish, and how do you set that expectation or align on that being the right thing to do with your client to sustain them through a period of time where the perception relative to starting out, where weight was just going up, that perception in contrast is arguably not making progress. So how do you define progress? How do you build that buy-in?
That always comes from a conversation of like, what's important to you now? And sometimes, like, I've learned too late where they're just like frustrated, and they're just like, what do I have to do now? Like, can we finally do this? And then I have to like, really check my programming and check myself and see what's going on. But it always comes down to, well, what's important to you now? Or let's actually be realistic about, maybe what I actually think was good programming, but what they needed to do on their side, it just wasn't the right time. Like life was too much.
Because of recovery.
Yeah, because of recovery. I work with professionals. You work with professionals. Like they have children, they have lives outside of the gym that are very busy. And like they can't train like a competitive power lifter. And so that becomes way more of a factor that we have to get more real on as we recalibrate. So sometimes like the goals change to, well, I want to feel better with my back extension on deadlift, or, I want to work on, more chin-ups or something like that, where it's not just getting strong everywhere. There's a little bit more even specific focus in maybe one of the lifts or something like that. Or it's just like, I need to have fun again.
Yeah. So the thing that's changed for my mental model, along with what I talked about at the beginning, where the margin for error gets smaller as you increase, which also tends to correspond with getting older, where you are more sensitive to stress, predominantly because your capacity to recover is less. The things you need to recover become harder. So like protein, for example, your ability to convert protein through muscle protein synthesis into new muscle declines as you get older. The amount of stress that you have to apply in order to trigger an adaptation becomes greater. So you have higher demands on what it takes to make progress, lower capacity to recover, and usually, like you said, more stress vectors from life that have to be juggled in. So the net effect of that tends to be spreading the timeline out to allow for more stress at some points of time, followed by longer amounts of recovery, with more emphasis on managing the recovery variables and the stress as much as you can, but most people can't. So the phrase that I have been talking and using a lot with my clients is that the goal right now is to accumulate heavy but doable sets. Like I am just going all in on heavy but doable.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is one of these amazing human things that you bring people in from all walks of life and they say that was hard but doable. That was heavy but doable.
Challenging, but I got it.
Challenging, but I got it. I just had that same one today. Another one guy hit a PR on his press 5x3 and he was like,
so good.
Some version of heavy but doable. But the beauty of that is that's how to make progress. It's like, it's got to be heavy but doable.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to accumulate sets, and to bring it full circle back to my training, when a day like today hits, sometimes you just got to go for it.
Yeah. At that stage of training, you really do.
I've been showing up for the last, I don't know how many months, just trying to do heavy but doable sets. Some days it's there, some days it's not. The weight's all over the place, probably like plus or minus 10 to 20 kilos.
Yeah.
And today it was there. And my coach might give me a little bit of grief for it, but it's like, you know what? At this stage of my training, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, I'm feeling good today, but I program said 5x5 at this or 3x5 at this, and I don't want to blow my load and fall off the program next week. Give me a break. Like I'm going to have a bad night of sleep Tuesday because it's seasonal allergies, and I'm going to feel like shit for the next 2 months. It's like, like if I have a chance at a PR, I'm going to freaking take it.
Kind of back to that scarcity abundance is like PRs do become a little more scarce later on.
PR is definitely a scarcity thing at this point in my life.
Yeah, but that's why you want to always have stuff in reserve. Like you can't go RPE 10 every single session. It's got to be doable.
Right.
That is important.
Success for me is still heavy, but doable.
Yeah. And this reminds me of a conversation I had with one of our other coaches, Brian Hosford, who just started jiu-jitsu. When we chatted, he had just started jiu-jitsu. He set up a call with me to ask my advice, and I ended up learning from him by the end of the call, which is awesome. He was like, I've decided to lay out my programming not to maximize my training in lifting and jiu-jitsu, but to maximize my recovery. And I was like, that's freaking brilliant.
Genius.
Yeah, he's in his 50s. He's super duper strong. Definitely one of our strongest coaches. And he'll go hard in jiu-jitsu, and he needs to recover. And it was just such a genius plan. I need to maximize recovery. And I think that's a really cool mindset.
What did that look like for him?
For him, it was doubling up days. So he would I think he was going to like lift in the morning and jiu-jitsu later or swap it. So then he would have like more actual off days during the week, which I thought was really cool.
I saw a Chad Wesley Smith made the same recommendation. I saw that on Instagram a year or two ago, but he definitely said the same thing. Like, make training days your training days, and then make recovery days do nothing day or whatever, active recovery. But
yeah, it's cool.
I think that's brilliant.
Love it.
There we go.
Definitely seen how that relationship has to change over time. And just the longer you're with a coach, the more your knowledge about each other grows. And I really love that too.
I still love having a coach.
Yeah, same.
I actually helped him for the first time too. We have an interesting coach relationship.
You guys do.
He's my coach and I'm his coach.
It's like this weird snake eating itself kind of thing.
He writes his own program. He doesn't want me to write his program. Nick Hammer. I mean, he's amazing, arguably, maybe not quite elite level, but
damn close.
I mean, 700-pound deadlifter, 600-pound squatter, 400-plus pound bencher. Like, he's
also works 120 hours a week.
Works insane hours. He's the national chair for North Carolina USAPL. So he is the meet director for all of the meets in North Carolina for USAPL. He's literally has a semi truck and a trailer that he will drive around the state with an entire multi-platform set of weights, bars, everything, and he's coordinating the refs and all this stuff.
Always down to meet.
And so, I get it. Like, he doesn't want to hand over the keys to the program. He's been doing this on his own for a long time, but he likes the accountability, which I do provide some. And I've been ribbing him for a while because he's usually a super consistent 4-day split lifter. And then life just is what it is. He got a new job I think he's coming up on a year and a half now, and his training's been getting harder and harder. And I just kind of planted the little seed, like, hey man, you've got a home gym. Maybe take a break from going balls to the wall on your competitive powerlifting, because usually his training has been full bore meet prep training, like heavy, hard, tapering, peaking kind of program. And that's just wasn't quite working. So I kind of planted the seed, like, hey, how about one lift a day? Just get in, do the thing. Don't like low pressure, 75, 85% intensity, but get in and do something, because he was missing like weeks of training. And his mental model of training was just that. It was like his whole life has been meat picking. And that was enough for him to give it a try. And now I think he's on 8 or 9 days in a row at this point of training.
Nice.
So I'm helping him. He helps me because I don't think about the program. I get the program and then I do whatever I want. And that feels good.
Yeah. It's really funny. I see you look at your workout. You're like, I'll do this.
I mean, I would say I do like 80 to 90% of what he tells me to do. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. 80% of the time, you do 80% of it.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew. Appreciate this conversation. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We would love a review from you. We'd love to hear about what you think about our podcast, and we'd love to share. Give us some stars. And we'll see you here next week on Barbell Logic, Beast Over Burden.
Bye-bye.